Hey, folks, welcome back to another edition of LFG, maybe your favorite. We hope it's your favorite unfiltered franchise education podcast. Leanne, what's so unfiltered about us?
I don't know. It's not nearly as unfiltered as we wanted it to be. We had big plans for unfilteredness, and it's not.
Why is that? Why do you think that is?
Pretty vanilla. I don't know.
I'm kind of unfiltered, but
Well, you're kind of unfiltered, but you're just kind of out there. Like I'm trying to think of the right word, but yeah, but you don't talk about you don't talk about all of your unfiltered stuff.
like what? Unfilter me, Leanne. What do we got?
No, I'm good.
Oh my goodness. Anyways, how's your week been? How's everything?
Pretty good, pretty good. Just
Any
Friday.
any tea you want to spill on in the franchise world that we all need to know about?
Ooh.
I'm really about this unfiltered this week. What kind of news have you heard around the nothing around
Hmm.
the circuit? Zero?
I'm not in for spilling tea here.
The
Then I won't,
heck?
if I spill tea, then I won't get the tea. So I can't spill
Um,
tea. You
okay,
know what I
fair
mean?
enough.
So I need to keep getting the tea.
Hey.
This isn't oh, what's his face? Perez Hilton.
Yeah. All right, folks. Well, you have it here. You heard it first. If you really want the tea, dial this number 1-800 Leanne CE. Oh,
Franchisingafterdark.com. That's where the tea gets spilled.
there you go. Google that, franchisingafterdark.com. All right, folks, here we have it. Leanne, why don't you take it away? Who do we have? This is an exciting podcast this week.
We do. We have Rainmaker here. Garth Fasano, president and co-founder, and Joe Gagnon, CEO and co-founder. Rainmaker, they have been at our Let's Grow events. So glad to finally get them on the podcast and talk through what they do at Rainmaker and their insights into the franchise space as it is right now. And hopefully they'll get unfiltered. You gotta
Love it.
you gotta be Howard Stern on them and get them unfiltered.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, we could try. Super excited to have Garth and Joe on. This is great.
Yep.
So before we get to our franchise royals, this segment is brought to you by Netsertive. If you listen to this podcast, you know I work with a lot of marketing partners, or at least Leanne does, in the franchising. One frustration I hear all the time is disconnected systems, reporting in one place, ad platforms in another, and no clear view of what is actually working locally. This is where Netsertive comes in. They bring localized strategy, expert teams, and their MLX technology platform together so performance data lives in one place and locations can grow more efficiently. If that sounds helpful for your brand, visit netsertive.com to learn more.
Wow, what a gift. You read that for me.
See that? Must be your lucky day.
Must be. All right, franchise royals. Who is your franchise royal this week? We had a debate because I thought you had already done this person before, but this is long overdue.
Yeah, and always trying to correct me.
You tried to correct me on
My,
mine, so
my goodness, always trying to correct me. I feel like I have two wives. I don't know. Crazy, crazy.
you
All
made
right.
this choice.
My franchise royal is another, no, not another sister wife. I was going to say is
Oh
another
boy.
sister. She is
Now
like
we're
my sister. Now
now
we're
we're
getting,
getting unfiltered. Your sister wives.
why is she like a sister? Because we worked together for nearly 10 years. I think it was about 9 years and 5 months within the same organization. And her name is Pamela Bell. You've probably heard of her for sure within the franchising walls along the show circuit. She actually exhibits at every one of my franchise shows. So it's nice that we still get to see each other literally every other weekend. Pam is the reason why she's a royal is number one, she contributes to the franchise industry as a whole. She has some great services to also assist with franchise lead generation. And the fact that she is at every single show and gets a lot of great contacts at our events. And then, of course, constantly on LinkedIn saying, Mike, what a great show. Just a nice avid supporter. And of course, she has been at every Let's Grow event since its inception. Pam has just been a supporter of all the things Franchise Assembly and the National Franchise Show. Pam, we love you, and you're our Royal this week. Who do you have, Leanne?
Pam is great. My franchise royal is Amanda Bialik from Connect Agency. She's the president of Connect Agency. I saw online that she recently just joined the WFC, and I'll tell you, the people they just brought onto the WFC are fire. So super excited for Amanda. She has been at all the Let's Grows too, and Canada, and she's a great karaoke star. If you really get her, and she's part of the mastermind, so she's been to most of our mastermind events. So Amanda's just a big supporter, super smart, so much fun. And congratulations for making the WFC and for just being the cool human that you are. And we love you, Amanda.
We love you, Amanda. Congratulations. And hold on a second there, Leanne. Not so fast. So who else did they add on to the WFC?
Who else did they add on to the WFC?
Yeah. You said these ladies are fire. I'm assuming they're ladies.
Yeah, so they got a bunch of our friends. They got Danielle Wright, Amanda House, Crystal Ware, who's the other one?
Wow.
Madalena from Brightwing.
Wow.
Yeah,
Love it.
there's a lot
It's
of
like an
good
all-star
ones.
lineup.
It is an all-star lineup, and I'm kind of sad I'm not in this crew, but it's
Oh,
always a good
wow.
group of women, so
But
it's
now
gonna
that
be
you
great.
brought that up, Leanne, weren't you a part of the WFN? What happened there? Was it some kind of beef, I think, that you left?
No, my time ran out. Thanks though.
You're Is that what happens? There's a
Yeah.
time limit?
Yes, there's a time limit. I did it for 6 years. My time is up to roll on to new fabulous women.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Well, I figured it
But
was
thanks
like
for trying to start. Thanks for trying to start some beef.
I thought that it was like a senator where you can
You're
stay
trying really
forever.
hard to get unfiltered, but no unfiltering here.
We're trying to make this the unfiltered franchise podcast, Leanne. Oh my God. Okay, fine. So no beef. You just left, and now all of your friends are on there.
My time
After
was
you
up.
leave, they finally jump on. Wow. I wonder if that says something about you.
I've been gone for 2 years. Calm down. All right. Before we head to our
Okay,
show and
okay.
tell segment, learn more about Paperfly.
Creating marketing materials for your franchise shouldn't be a choice between speed and brand consistency. Paperfly gives local franchises the power to create and adapt brand-approved marketing materials in minutes without needing a designer. With design templates and one central portal, campaigns launch faster, giving you built-in visibility and complete brand governance. See why franchise networks trust Paperfly to deliver thousands of brand-consistent assets at scale. Visit paperfly.com.
Oh, and thank you, Paperfly, for that great commercial. Okay, so we're back to the show, guys. This is Show and Tell, the segment where we bring on industry leaders, an expert in their field, someone to share insights in their segment of franchising. And we have two great guests who you guys probably know, Garth Fasano, president and co-founder, and Joe Gagnon, CEO and co-founder of Raynmaker. Guys, welcome on to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Good, and hopefully I didn't butcher either of your
I was going to say, was that pronounced right?
We respond to anything,
That guy over there.
Thanks for coming on, guys. If you don't mind, tell us a little bit about each of you and then tell us about Raynmaker.
Sure, I'll start. I've spent the predominance of my life in the tech space. And first part, I always say was like, pretty traditional, big organizations like, IBM kind of thing. And then I dove into the entrepreneur world about 20 years ago and have done quite a few of these early stage companies where we're trying to transform how a business process works, predominantly focused on in the B2B2C world. So build some platform that a business can use to affect the consumer life, whether that's through sales or service or some other function. And across that journey, I had the chance to do this quite a few times with Garth. And so we like working with each other. We sort of like intersect and we separate, we come back together again, especially when we have a really cool idea. And we're both outdoors people. We love adventure, whether it be rock climbing or ultra running or whatever it might be. And we found ourselves on a hike at one of the local hikes in Denver, North Table Mountain, brainstorming an idea. Garth will talk about in a second here, but ultimately, that helps our mission because we are aligned about what we're trying to accomplish. So,
Yeah.
Garth.
That's hard to beat, but had a career that followed around in big enterprises consulting for Fortune 100 around their sales and service. And so generally that was call center work. And I was often at the forefront of technology. I think for the last 20 years, we've always been looking for what's the next best solution to improve the customer experience. And instead of making these incremental improvements to sort of what I would consider a legacy model, how do we really transform it? And we are now at that moment of technology transformation, and that's what we're implementing at Rainmaker and bringing to small businesses. That hike on North Table Mountain was, how do we democratize access to professional sales capabilities for the SMB space in the way that we experienced at the big organizations we worked for? And technology platform is a great way to do that.
And then, of course, leveraging AI, because this is this inflection point that, look, if you went through the world that I did, I was lucky enough to be at the days of the web and then cloud and mobile. But I don't know if there's anything that has captivated us nearly as much as AI. Now, there is a bit of the hype cycle that we're still living in. Like there's a lot of noise. We had a customer of ours recently said we'd prefer to have an answering machine, so the world hasn't moved that far forward, but we are building capability to make that small and medium business owner's life easier and to make their business more profitable or more effective. And, we think that this process from taking a lead to creating a customer has predominantly been thrown back on them without a lot of level of technology support. And so we're trying to bring our sales expertise from the years of call center and other work that we've done into an AI world so that you could one day autonomously close a sale.
Wow. Oh, I'm excited to hear more on that. Do you work primarily with franchise brands or all?
We
Like
work with
any small business?
any small business. And so, however, we do work with a lot of franchises. It's something that's a little bit easier for a franchisor to set up, give the requirements, make sure it works for their business, and then deploy it amongst their franchisees. It's also something that gives the franchisor a lot of leverage across the business because now they actually know what's going on in the end interactions that a franchisee would typically happen with one of their potential customers. So it's a data layer that has never really been accessible before.
Very cool. So franchise systems standardize everything, but not sales.
I mean, I think that they would. I've seen a
Mhm.
lot of sales training, a lot of sales tools, but I think if you really get into what's happening, it's not implemented very consistently because it's really hard. It's a difficult problem to solve.
Yeah, if you think about it this way, right? So it's easy to sort of standardize who you're going to buy a lead from, right? And it's easy to figure out once you get a customer where you're going to put that data into a CRM. But in between, what happens in small businesses is chaotic, right? I'm out delivering a service. It's late at night. It's the weekend. I got too much business. I'm delivering the service, running the business, hiring people. uh, Getting to a sales call is hard. So if they do and when they do, or they hired someone to do it, it's just mostly inconsistent. They may even have sales training. The problem is who's managing it, who's actually watching it, who's getting at the conversion metrics. Everyone knows they spend a lot of money on buying leads, right? Have you ever met a small business that says, I absolutely get the best value out of buying those leads? I think they mostly say no, because it is in this part of the process that they don't get a lot of support. And so our goal is to sort of think about could you create the best salesperson ever and make them available to that small business owner to take any inbound lead or any outbound lead for that matter, and have the right conversation with the consumer to inform them so they can make a decision. So you could qualify them so they could schedule an appointment and maybe even put a deposit down on the service so that the owner can then get higher qualified or already closed customers. That's the vision that we have. And our goal is to try to make that easy to implement as well. And we can talk about what's the reaction to AI, how are people feeling about that, but it is necessary. But that's not, AI is not just the AI voice, it's machine learning, it's the orchestration layer and the infrastructure of the agents that work together. It's a whole host of capabilities that you have to bring together to make that happen.
So true. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I mean, when it comes to sales, that's the thing, right? We find ourselves and we think that, everyone is kind of expendable, but maybe you guys are going to actually create that. Because I find that, I mean, first of all small business, I don't think any small business really tracks anything that much. And then, you layer in the personal, the individuals, and things will fluctuate so much. It's really random. But before we get into all of that, I'd like to take a step back. Joe, you and Garth, you mentioned just a couple minutes ago that you came from the consulting and enterprise tech and the call center, and now you completely reinvented it as an AI platform. What happened there?
You start, Garth.
Oh boy. I mean, what we had proven was that there was a very real need through what would be a traditional call center business. We worked with a couple franchises, a couple small businesses across a bunch of different verticals, but primarily in home services and retail locations across the United States and Canada. So we knew that this was a really important problem to solve for the small business space. And as AI development accelerated, we knew that there was a real way to actually scale this and make it available to more clients and more businesses. We sort of took that leap of faith together. And on December 17th last year was when we closed the first autonomous sale with our AI platform. So no human intervention. We took a very confusing conversation where multiple people were on the phone and our AI walked that consumer through, I think it was about a 14-minute call, asked them questions about their specific problem. The customer responded. It provided reassuring brand value building points. It pitched the right service, priced it, handled objections, another person coming into the conversation, took a deposit payment on the call, and then scheduled it directly on that business's calendar. And so that was the moment where we sort of really knew that this was the future.
Yeah, and I think I'd add to the reason that we were so compelled to work on this is that, there are a lot of business processes that all industries have invested billions of dollars in trying to fix some of the core constraints. And we kept coming back to that the constraint in sales and small business really comes down to the human is the issue. And so you can outsource that to another human in a call center, excuse me, but you don't really solve the problem because expertise isn't common. They can't answer the phone 24/7. You have all of the sort of issues that people bring to the system. And so our idea was, if we could represent the depth of that conversation, that expertise, leveraging now what was starting to become possible, a voice AI experience, so that someone would feel good about it. And they weren't talking to a chatbot because we never like that. We don't like IVRs. That's not good. We don't like being put on hold or talk to someone who doesn't actually know what we're talking about. So we saw the opening and thought, what if we push through? And that's what happened. To Garth's point, it actually worked. We sort of say that because you start down these paths, you're not really sure, can it work? And it continues to work. That doesn't mean the entire world is moving in this direction. It's like, self-driving has taken how long, we still have Waymo and people won't get in. There's a resistance because it's different. There's resistance because what we're learning now is that someone wants reassurance. I just outsourced this idea, not to another person, which was bad enough, Now I outsourced it to some tech platform I don't really understand because small business owners are not technologists. And so we're trying to work to build confidence with them. So the ability to look at a transcript or listen to a call, you know, uh, we really don't prefer the idea of a human escalation point, but if that really made someone feel more comfortable, the funny thing is most of the escalation, no one ever answers the phone when you escalate. They're not available. We sort of like we want to solve the core problem is you don't answer the phone and then you tell us if they don't like the AI, transfer the call, but then no one answers. You're like, all right, well, I'm not sure what we accomplished here, but needless to say, we're trying to be market focused. And so we continue to listen and refine. We wouldn't do this to you guys, but we could talk for hours about the years ahead, the pathway forward. There is so much that can happen that can change the dynamics of how you make the American dream come true for the small business owner, which is that I run a small business, but it doesn't overwhelm my life. And that Garth knows deeply because he's been in the small business. He even teaches about small business ownership. And everyone has the fantasy, and then there's the reality. What we hope is that we make it work a lot better.
So take it back just a sec. When you say autonomous sales, what does that actually mean, like in regular people language?
I want to try answering this one because I think what is so important about it is that it's the objective of reducing the impact of the variability in your sales force. So if you are running a team and you have a couple sales reps today, if a big prospect were to call in on the phone, you probably in the back of your mind are like, oh man, I hope Joe is the one who answers that call because you just know who is going to be better. And despite all of the training and hiring and improvements that you make, you're never going to reduce that variation between the best, the worst, and the middle to zero. And what autonomous sales is all about is delivering a consistent experience to the end consumer, as well as improving over time. And so removing that human variable element from the process.
But the human variable we're reducing here isn't the feeling of humanity. It's actually just the physical person. Because so like when we say autonomous, which is the ability to act independently, right? That's what an autonomous car can do. It can make a decision. An autonomous sales platform does that. But it has to have other elements to it. It has to have a cognitive capability, a thinking capability, which Garth talked about, which is we think about reinforcement learning, the ability to listen and improve. The third element to us that makes something truly autonomous is to have a human element to it, to have some level of empathy. Look, in sales, I wrote a white paper recently on the idea of, the information asymmetry that's happened in sales over the years that make people unconfident about the decisions they're making because the used car salesman used to manipulate. We want to inform and empower. You want to make people feel good about a decision. You want to be able to listen to a conversation and get the tone and the emotion that's coming through so you can actually help them. And then lastly, it's actually having a really solid workflow and understanding of how you then move through the process. Because sales is a process, right? From early stage interest to qualified to actually then being able to have overcome objections and then actually make a sale, which is for us fundamentally be able to schedule the appointment, take the payment, and then commit that data to a CRM. So it is way more than just putting a voice front end on an LLM that's a large language model like OpenAI. This is a complicated on purpose, but and it should have no visibility to the end consumer. All they should feel is that, oh, I had a good conversation. Wow, that was great. I was able to get that lawn care settled and taken care of, and they're coming next week. So it's all of that.
Right. I think if it was up to Leanne, it would be, hello, take the payment. That's good. I joke. This is great. I'm gonna jump into the franchising component in a second, but I really do want to take it back. One quick question about how it all started. What was that defining moment? Like, when did you see that shift where you're like, okay, boom, we got to do this? Was there something that rang the bell, or?
I mean, it was watching the pulse of the market. I mean, I think there's a lot of factors that go into these sort of major strategic decisions for any business. But, Joe and I were continuing to stay in touch, and we were monitoring what was going on with AI. And I was in the small business world, and Joe was running a technology company at the time. He was the CEO of another venture-backed technology company. And whenever we would meet, he said, "So what are you thinking about with AI? What are you doing there?" And I just said, "Hey, I think it's further out. It's still not coming yet." And then he asked me that question when we caught up, and I said, I can now say with confidence it's coming sooner than what I've ever said before. And my timeline was like 3 years out. The next week, OpenAI launched some of their voice platform capabilities. And I called Joe the next day and said, "Hey, we got to talk. It's happening now." And so that was the moment for me. It was reading the signals in the market and seeing what is becoming possible for a business to achieve through this technology. And I think what we're seeing and what Joe mentioned in the hype cycle that is around AI, I think a lot of people still don't really know how to use this to actually improve the way their business operates. Maybe it can help them write their emails a little bit faster. And for a small business owner, maybe that means they can actually quote a customer a little bit easier, make it sound better, do that process faster. And it's about efficiency and effectiveness. Where we're really going to see big strides, I think, in the next 3, 6, 12 months is where you're able to optimize an entire workflow. And so there are going to be businesses that start to target each of those core functional areas and really make massive improvements by structurally changing the model. And so that's what we set out to do with sales, because we thought it probably is one of the hardest ones.
Love it. Very cool story. Okay, so jumping back into franchising, for any of the franchisors listening, how big of a problem is it that every location sells a little differently?
Oh, I think that for a franchisor, if you were asked to run anyway from 2 to 1,000 and say that you actually have no direct visibility into what was going on every day, I'm not sure you would want to take that business. Like, I don't know how you do it, but we do it anyway because we think we can't. And so I think for the franchisor, the lean in here has to be that we need to do anything we possibly can to get better intelligence about what happens across our system every day at a depth we've never had before, because it's getting more competitive. It's harder, between price and competitiveness and new business entrants. Like, the only defensibility we have is the knowledge that we have about what goes on in our system. And it can't just be the arm's length removed through some transactions that roll up every quarter. Like, to be in the middle of the conversation between the consumer and the business at scale, to be able to query that information and find out what packages are working, what prices are working, what objections are there, what happens regionally, how do people feel about the brand? I mean, it is nothing short of remarkable what will be available. So the franchisor should want to do this not because they care about the AI as the method. They care about the result of the conversation that enables intelligence at a level they've never had into the dynamic between the relationship with the consumer and the business. And now, if you're a really great operator, you will really think and understand about what you should be doing because it's off of the market. It's not just off of some opinion.
How many brands do you think, let me position this the right way. How many franchisors think they know or have a handle on how much revenue they're actually missing from these gaps? I bet they really have no idea. And not against them, but I just
too. Yeah. I recently, one of the markets that we're really intrigued by is catering in the fast casual dining space. And yeah, there are some like online platforms, and then people call the store, and then you get the silent partner. You've heard this one before, right? The person who takes an order and they make the food and then they put the money in their pocket. I mean, this happens. When the phone rings in a store, you have no idea what's happening. They don't have to enter it into the POS. And so we have one client, of course, we'd go nameless, who knows they're losing millions of dollars across the system just on that one piece. So I think that they all know, they don't know the magnitude, but then they had no way of fixing the problem, right? Online didn't solve. We still want to talk to someone about, I don't know how many sandwiches to order for 23 people. And so this sticks a capability in between the consumer and the business that changes that fundamentally. Everything has to go through the platform. So all the revenue would flow. We don't put the employee in a bad spot making decisions they shouldn't be making, and we get the intelligence and we build the business better. So it is a really good example of in the franchise space that we can actually improve the operation by thinking about the way the business process runs.
Pretty wild. So when you took out, let's talk about the human element. When you took out the human from the sales process, what broke and what worked?
I think one spot that we probably didn't realize enough initially was that a system like this in a platform requires business rules. And a lot of small businesses operate in this gray area where it really comes down to the owner to make a decision. Should I discount? Should I offer this? Should I do it that day? It means I'm going to have to do it. I don't know. And whether the business owner took the call, their sales rep, or an outsourced call center, they had a little bit more flexibility in how to make those decisions. When you put something into a platform, while AI does make decisions, it's looking for what you've guided it to do. And so if you don't have solid business rules or systems, it may not deliver the results you want. And so I think what it's forced is some tightening, which is a really good thing for businesses to have on, what they do, what they don't do, and drawing those lines a little bit more clearly.
Yeah, and I think that's great, Garth. It's such a good point. Yeah, on one side, the owner says, maybe I want to do that deal because I'm not so busy, right? I'll do the lawn cutting for $100 rather than what's on the web at 250. And then you got a franchisor trying to create standards in a system that they really don't want someone negotiating, and they're selling it for $100 over and over again. And now they're changing, the perception of the brand value of that service delivered. And so it is a balancing act to try and figure out where the business rules need to come in. And maybe the escalation from time to time is against some business rule that says, if this happens, then let the owner make a decision. And so the listening that goes on as this conversation is happening, the speech to text, the orchestration, the reach into our rain brain, which is making decisions on how the conversation gets constructed, the rules that are in our database that tell someone what to do and what not to do. That has to happen in real time. So what we've learned is that one of the rules, the business rules into our prompt says, if we hear this phraseology, then we would escalate. And so more and more, we're learning that, we can get it to do whatever we want it to do. We just have to know what we want it to do. I always find like if someone comes to us and says, well, we don't like the way it sounds, we're like, well, that's because we all made it sound like that. It's different than an employee. Like we can change, a Southern accent to a Boston accent in a second. Like we can change the tone and the pacing or the content. This is what's really fundamentally different is the level of control that business owner could have over the way they want it to work versus what they had before.
So in this process, did you learn about how customers actually buy other than kind of what we think there's a way that customers buy? Did you uncover anything different that they buy differently?
Definitely. And it's a little bit different in each vertical, is what we're seeing. There are some verticals where it's a very emotional decision, and there is a process that you take a different process and approach there than something that is a little bit more transactional. That's been one of the biggest factors we've seen, like taking a pizza order versus, a service where someone's coming out to the person's home or going into the home. There are a lot more questions about that, and there's a much different way that you build value and rapport with that customer. And so those are the tactics that we help our clients implement in any of their agents as well.
Yeah, the other thing so there are different buying archetypes, the considered purchase high risk, high information need versus that someone just placing an order. But the other thing is that the objections do tighten up. There are only so many objections people have. And I think that the world wants those objections not to be true. Like we find the spousal objection to be in the top 3 across almost every one of these businesses. And we've never seen a marketing campaign ever that educates someone on how would you address that ahead of time. Like, why don't we make the customer more comfortable before we hit them as a lead? And so one of the things we want to do is create a free feedback loop, right? What did we learn? Yeah, we can handle it in objection handling through reinforcement learning in the call, but we should get that person more prepared for a sales call before they show up by how we communicate with them, by what we learned by having listened to the conversation.
Sounds like I might be out of a job soon, Leanne. I don't know. It's fascinating stuff. What industries are you leaning into with this, and what are there some industries that are not compatible? What are you finding is the best?
Oh, well, I actually think that any place where a human is talking to another human to try and create a transaction will be open over the next 5 to 10 years. I'll tell you just as a quick example, but it isn't the tech issue. This is the human issue. So we actually went to an end of life conference where, funeral homes and cemeteries are there. And we had a lot of really good conversations that this might really actually be a better approach than talking to a person, you know? And yet they're like, we're just not ready. Like, this is so logical. No one wants to be on the phone with someone crying. And the people crying don't care whether they're talking to a person. They just need to know. But there's a human element to that we're not going to accelerate. But 10 years from now, there's no possible way AI is not in the middle of that conversation. So anyway, I think that we'll find them all to be cooperative. Right now, we focus on home services, something that happens around a part of your life that's really important. So that could be cleaning or cleaning your windows, the house, mowing your lawn, walking the dog, all these different things related to home services. Because it's crazy, but people still want to make phone calls, right? They want to ask a question. The web is not enough of an information source when it matters to you. We're working in the food service space, in the catering space as well. And the pizza ordering one is funny because we hadn't had a plan to do that, but we're in pizza because no one really wants to call on a Friday night and say, "Can I put you on hold? Can I put you on hold? Can I put you on hold?" Like, it's just straightforward. It's a really easy solve. And I actually had both Garth and I had worked together at one of my other startups in the food ordering space. So we brought that expertise back to life. And instead of using people in the middle, we're using the AI, and it just works better. And it avoids that problem, which no one really likes to have. So that's our initial focus right now. But we get a lot of inbounds from really curious places, and we're always willing to listen.
That's
That's
great.
really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah. So when someone calls in, you said you can change the accent, you can change that, and then it can be conversational in tone. Like,
Absolutely.
does it sound like that's so cool?
So there's a tuner. So the way the platform works, right? There's a lot of, as I said, complexity, but who cares, right? It's just supposed to be invisible. But
Yeah.
one of the parts through the Rainmaker control tower that the customer can work with us on is to pick a voice, to pick a tone, to pick the speed of the conversation. And then the best thing, the coolest part of this entire experience has been, we all done technology and we all do demos, right? And demos are like, boring. We just have a phone call. That's it. We put a phone on the desk, or we put a phone, like, just call it, talk to it. And it's the greatest experience because then you realize this is what you're going to be buying, is this conversation. And so we have our favorite customer story was they said they wanted this Southern drawl as the accent. And then we sent it to them. And they're like, well, we didn't really mean that. Like, we actually want that. Like, that girl is 30, lives in Ohio. That sounds better, And so it's a very experiential thing, and you can change it. The other part that's been so fun is that everyone gets to name their person. So what do you want to call it? Is it going to be not going to be Joe or Garth? We know that. But then they like have that person, this anthropomorphic version of their brand that then becomes over time part of their brand. And I think you'll see one day advertising campaigns that touch on this. My favorite recently is Maya. We use that for a couple of our customers. And like, oh yeah, you can call Maya and talk to her anytime. I mean, there's so many things we haven't touched on. But one is, do you tell people it's AI? Of course you do. We wrote the Rainmaker Constitution in the early part of our journey to guide the responsibility code that we have in putting this technology in between the business owner and the consumer. We never misinform. If we don't know, we say we don't know. We want to have that visibility and transparency so people feel comfortable with that. And it's the same thing. It's like, it's okay if someone says, I know I'm talking to an AI. And actually, if you ask it, it'll give a reasonable answer. And if you want to escalate, we do like to say before you escalate out, be like, are you sure? I think I can really help you. And people stay often. So we're learning. We're all learning at this point. And the best part is that it's actually running every day. So we're learning in real life, as people say.
So if something happens and Maya doesn't know, for instance, she says, I don't know. But then like, I guess the client or the brand will say, this is what I want to do if it doesn't know, like
Yes.
what kind of tree does it go to? Like,
Yep. So right now, all of that goes through a notification. So, like in a franchising example, typically it's a designated contact of the franchisee, so they get notified, so they can follow up and handle it the right way. And Maya would handle that in a very smooth transition, not just like, I don't know, click, like, have a good conversation about that, help them as much as they could. And then, just be clear, like, hey, I'm going to pass this all along and you'll get a follow up. And we describe those follow-ups in the way that franchisee or franchisor wants it to be handled.
What we do like is that, so I did a catering demo for a restaurant, and we had put some rules in there about so much food that could be ordered before 90 minutes ahead of time. And so they tested it with me there, and they tried like 5 ways to go around it, like trying to change the prompt that they were asking. And the AI was great. It wasn't like the employee who sort of said, like, I think I can do that, because they don't really want to do that. So it's following the rules is sometimes even more helpful, because it would say, well, if you really need it for 300 people, we can do that for Thursday, but otherwise what we could do for today is this, and so you have a better control of your business in the method that we're putting in place with the AI and the rules base underlying it.
I think, one other thing to call out on that kind of example, and it also touches on, describing that having good business rules matters, is you're going to reduce this sort of mental fatigue and overload on your general manager or on the franchise owner by, removing that decision burden. Like, in the example Joe was just giving, oh, well, I know the owner, I'm his buddy. Come on, can't you do it? And like, so then people want to help, even though it's going to put all this additional pressure on the system. Like maybe the sandwiches aren't going to be made very well for the next hour because they've got an extra order that they're trying to get ready. And so you're just not going to have to think about that kind of stuff anymore. It's going to run the way you intend for the business to run.
so cool. Oh, I could probably keep talking to you about this all day. But so if people want to learn more, how can they reach out to you or find out about Rainmaker?
I mean, we're on the web, rainmaker.ai, but we're spelled with a Y, Raynmaker. Garth and I, when we named the company, it was the easiest name we could ever come up with because, the Rainmaker is the one who creates sales. So we love that. We're on LinkedIn under Rainmaker. Both Garth and I are on LinkedIn. If you ping us, we will respond. We're really open and we want to hear from people. We know we're early. We are, of course, zealots and excited and yet we understand deeply, that someone who runs a small business has a lot of constraints in their life. And so we think about that and want to be supportive of how do we make their lives better and how do we make their businesses more productive? And that's our commitment. But we all have a lot of journey ahead of us, and we think that look, I don't think this is one that's going to turn back on itself, right? I mean, AI is going to be part of our lives in whatever form we talk about it. And so we want to make that the most productive for the small business owner. and we want to be their partner. So if you're interested in talking to people who want to listen and support you and continue to build, capability that helps you, reach that American dream, then we're your team.
Love it. Now, when we call you, though, is it going to be Joe or Joe that picks up?
Pretty soon it's going to be Alex.
Yeah, and you won't even know. That's the thing, is like one day we're gonna say you're an AI, and they're like, really? You sure you're not a person saying you're an AI? I think it just gets better all the time. So we appreciate you guys having us on and wanting to dig in, and maybe we'll check in again in the future and tell some more stories about what we're finding in the real world.
Yeah, it's very cool. I can't wait to see where you guys go with this, and happy to refer out.
Awesome.
Thank
Thank you.
Love it.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
coming on, guys.
Bye.
All right. Fantastic. Always nice to have a couple of well-rounded gentlemen on the podcast, and of course you too, Leanne. And so our next segment is Franchise Mingle. Leanne, why don't you take it away? What's our lineup for Franchise Mingle?
I'd love to. I'd love to talk about your events. First, let me just say, Franchise Mingle is sponsored by the National Franchise Show. Did you know that?
Oh, very nice. Love it.
We love the National Franchise Show, don't we? Because they employ you.
Oh, so maybe you don't like it then. Continue on, Leanne. Continue
All
on.
right. Finishing up this spring, you have Baltimore, which is a first timer, and Portland, Oregon, which is also a first time show. In a few days, we've got the Portland, Maine spring retreat for the mastermind group. Very, very excited for that. Then you and I will be at Fran Camp in New Jersey in early June. Super excited to give that one a go. For as far as our events, we've got Franchise Marketing Live in Denver, November 2nd and 3rd, followed by the Hello Mastermind Fall Retreat in Denver, November 4th and 5th. Then we have Let's Grow in Dallas this year, not Fort Worth, Dallas, January 27th through 29th. We do have a new hotel, a new venue. So we're going to shake it up a little bit, even though it's going to be hard to top a rodeo, but we're going to do it. All right. And then we've got Franchising After Dark in Tampa, October 18th, and Atlanta, November 15th. Any other shows you want to mention in the spring?
Nope. Those are you've mentioned all the ones in the spring, man.
I meant fall. I don't
know. We have a
even
bunch
know.
of franchise shows. If you want more info on it, look it up. franchiseshowinfo.com, or drop me a message on LinkedIn.
As far as I can tell, they're the best regional expos and franchise opportunity expos out there.
Ooh, that is great.
Unbiased
What makes
opinion.
you say that? What makes you say
Unbiased
that?
opinion. Well, first of all, I just came from Orlando, which was amazing and top-notch, packed floors. Every show I've been to has been that way. And then all the pictures you post for all the other ones seem to be pretty good. Plus, you get pretty good testimonials from people.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I thank you for that plug. I think
you didn't even pay me to say that.
Most people don't know that we're the best attended franchise show in North America. I mean, even, anyways, I won't get into that, but that is great. This episode is brought to you by Netsertive, Papirfly, Franchise Assembly, and the National Franchise Show. We will see you in a couple weeks, folks. Bye.
Bye.